Well, how you view the economy depends, of course, on where you're looking. For consumers in the United States, things are looking up. The economy is continuing to improve, thank goodness. The stock market is flirting with all-time highs and oil prices are low. But for countries dependent on oil revenue, low oil prices are indeed devastating, no doubt. Nigeria, Iran, Russia, and many other nations are struggling. Even parts of the U.S. that are dependent on oil drilling are also hurting. Of course, Europe is also feeling the pain. There were angry protests as the European Central Bank opened a new headquarters in Germany. Demonstrators object to the bank's policies, including austerity measures. Well, joining us is a very, very good friend of mine. You know him very well. Orig Exchange Anchor and business editor Andrew Schmertz. I call him Schmertzy.
Good to be here, Julian.
Let's start with the Federal Reserve here. This is a big question. There's been concern that the Fed would act too quickly to raise interest rates and stymie the economic recovery. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, so deciding when to raise interest rates is a little art and a little science and a little reading the tea leaves. And so the argument right now among the so-called hawks on the Federal Reserve Board, those who would raise interest rates, is that the economy is improving faster than expected. So we had a revised fourth quarter gross domestic product over 3%. We're starting to see significant improvements in the labor market, and that they want to get ahead of raising interest rates because when you keep interest rates too low, there's always the specter of inflation. So the economy seems to be moving in the right direction. They were talking about raising interest rates in September and now maybe June. But Janet Yellen, who is the chair of the Fed and ultimately really makes the decisions here, has been very dovish on that, as she has continued to use the word patience. The Fed comes up with different words every meeting. And patience, she says we're going to be patient.
Well, if I'm a homeowner, I might like that because, the specter of rising interest rates might wreak havoc on the housing
Well,
industry.
that has been one of the concerns. In fact, every time that mortgage rates have gone up, even when they go up, 25 basis points, 0.25%, you see a significant drop in mortgage applications and a slowdown in the housing market. And that is one of the arguments for not raising interest rates, that the economy cannot support raising interest rates because when the Fed raises interest rates, that trickles down to banks raising interest rates on mortgages. But then that says a lot about the economy because we have historically low mortgage rates. And if you can't raise interest rates now, then really the housing market does not seem all that sustainable.
Okay, maybe the Fed will kick the can down the road a few more years. Hopefully so. But let's move on here.
Well, you say hopefully so, but if you have a relative living on a fixed income, they haven't seen a raise in years. If you have people living on Social Security, they haven't seen a raise in years. The stock market has been taking off only because there's nowhere else to invest your money.
Okay.
You're not investing in bonds.
Or maybe I'm just so selfish. I guess that's what.
Well, we all are.
Yeah. All right. And moving on here, the almighty dollar. For a while there was a lot of concern about the dollar, against other currency here. But the dollar's pretty strong right now. How long can this last? And how does that fare with other currencies?
The dollar, the greenback, is up 22% against a basket of currencies worldwide, which of course includes the euro. And what is causing the dollar to go up? Well, it's not so much. Well, partly the United States economy is looking pretty good, but the rest of the world looks pretty crummy.
Right.
And so as the dollar goes up, oil prices come down. They kind of go in tangent right now. But a stronger dollar rebalances the trade issue because we import more in, and it will wreak havoc on corporate earnings for the United States because keep in mind, any company that does business internationally, and that's most of the companies that obviously make up the Dow and obviously make up the S&P 500, are going to have to rebalance their earnings because they take in money in international currencies that are worth a lot less today.
Oil-consuming nations consuming oil at a lower cost. Prices are still down. They were up somewhat, maybe 10 cents here in the United States, but still relatively low. Thank goodness for us.
Over the last few years, yes.
Yeah, but what about those nations that are seeing a lot of economic peril right now? Nigeria being one, Russia being another, not to mention sanctions. What happens there?
Well, the OPEC countries and Russia have taken a very hard hit here because of falling oil prices, and nobody really expected it. So why did oil prices come down? Well, you have softness in Europe, and you have Saudi Arabia, which is really the one making the decision here. And until they get overthrown by OPEC, they're the ones making the call here. That wants to keep the pressure on supply, keep supply growing. Why? Well, one, Saudi Arabia wants to punish Russia, so they use oil as a political weapon. And they also want to compete against the United States. The U.S. is about to overtake the world in producing oil, fracking, a good part of that. But that costs money. And how much it costs ranges from a certain dollar figure per barrel in the United States about where you're doing it or whatever. And at some point, and we're probably at that point, it no longer becomes profitable to continue to drill and frack for oil. And that is the goal here, is to sort of of rebalance the supply and demand. How long can Saudi Arabia hold on? Is a big question. Nigeria, if you want to use Nigeria as an example here, their oil price collapse has caused a collapse in the naira. And so when your currency collapses, because all of oil is done in petrodollars, when your currency collapses, you cannot go out and spend the money. And so Nigeria and other countries, Venezuela in particular, getting hammered.
Right. You know something, Andrew? You're so smart.
I am. even, and that's why I come in on a Sunday morning, so you can talk me up.
I'm going to slap you.
I appreciate that.
Goodbye.
My friend.
Andrew, thank you for coming in. Well,
Julian.
Thank you so much.